Greg.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I am looking forward to learning about Parkers.
Okay.
My level of knowledge on Parkers is zero.
Mine's better than zero, so I guess I'm going to be able to teach you something about Parker shotguns.
And that is good. So I've done a very small amount of research, and it's quite confusing. They made a lot of guns.
About 242,000 guns.
A lot of guns.
A lot of guns, but not a lot of guns.
Where did they come from? Who was Parker?
Charles Parker, 1868. He was a hardware man in Meriden, Connecticut, and he made things like coffee grinders and irons and things to that effect.
Waffle irons.
Waffle irons, yes, and coffee grinders.
This is basically a waffle iron.
That's a waffle iron turned into a gun, yes. During the Civil War, he was contracted to make 17,000 rifles for the Union Army.
So he was a good guy.
He was a good guy, yes. And then after the war, he decided to pursue something he'd been thinking about, which is to make high-quality gentleman's shotgun. It was an independent company until the 30s, and then Remington bought them out, and then by 1939, Parker was out of business.
I'm really keen to ask about the end before we talk about the beginning. Why did they stop? What happened?
Depression, and like so many American gun companies, it became too expensive to build the guns. A lot of American, and I would put Fox and I would put L.C. Smith and Parker in this, they were incredibly accommodating companies. So they would build basically whatever you'd like. And that takes time and it costs money, and eventually it grinds you down to where you can't make those accommodations anymore and you run out of money.
You can't afford the service the customers demand.
Correct.
Much better to do an English company thing and just make yourself so expensive
that
no one could ever buy
No one ever could buy them. So any Parker gun, and we'll talk a little about grades, you could then customize it to a certain degree however you wanted it.
Okay. There was a point in time from my very limited research where they became the Parker gun.
Correct.
Which looks just like this.
Correct.
Can you talk us through it?
Well, I can talk you a little bit through it, sure. So initially there were a couple of design modifications, but then the Parker we've come to know is distinguished by this huge hinge pin here, the doll's head.
Square doll's head.
Square doll's head lockup on this. There was also the Parker Trojan, which was the low-end model that did not have the doll's head.
Just a knock together cheapie.
Yep.
But after the Trojan, the internals are pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if you're familiar with Parker reproductions that were made by Winchester.
Yes.
So the Parker reproduction was actually, they made DHEs like this gun here.
Very pretty.
And they're beautiful guns, and the specs on those guns were so good that the parts were actually interchangeable. So a Winchester Parker DHE.
Yeah,
replaced the
I
parts.
went down a bit of a rabbit hole with that when I had that classic doubles 201.
Yep.
Because it was built on the same forgings.
Correct.
And apparently they went down. It was so important when they were developing that reproduction that it was made to the same standard, if not better.
Better, given the machinery and the work that went into these guns, and then you fast forward, into the...
Yeah, the 1980s is better than the 1880s.
Right, absolutely.
Apparently.
So then they're building these extraordinary guns.
Less cholera.
So then Parker guns came in various grades, so the Trojan being the lowest grade, and then the Invincible, I believe, is the highest grade they ever made. And
there's like three of them?
There's like three, and there's a debate who actually owns them and where they ever ended up, and blah, 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 blah.
I presume there's some fakes out there.
I have seen a fake in the Orvis gun room a few years ago. A guy brought it in.
Good fake?
It was a bad fake. But he was quite convinced that he had an Invincible in his hands, and he did not. So many of these guns were customized. If there's some provenance on who did the work, it can make a compelling case for the gun to have some value. He had no story for this gun at all. As a matter of fact, he had taken the gun in payment for a debt. And then he went to sell it, and it started out at like $45,000, and then it went down to $20,000, and it eventually sold to a guy in Georgia for 10 grand. And it was a $10,000 gun.
Yeah, who wanted a fake Invincible.
Correct.
Which are a very pretty gun.
Very pretty gun, but not the real deal.
Pistol grips.
Yes.
Very more common than straight stock.
Grip. Yep.
Any straight grips?
Straight grip Parkers, yes, but it'd be a rare bird to find, right?
Did they ever do a single trigger model?
I don't see many of them.
Okay.
But people also modified them too, and could put single triggers in.
Like a Miller or whatever.
Yeah.
Were ejectors standard?
Standard, but by request. So this is a Parker VH. So
What does VH stand for?
V grade.
Pretty with a H.
Hammerless.
Hammerless. Okay.
So this is a VH.
Okay.
Okay. It is not a VHE. If it was a VHE, it would be an ejector gun.
Okay.
So this is a VH Parker on an O frame. So Parker did their guns on frame sizes. So 000 was the smallest for the 410. And a Parker 410 is a equally rare bird. You're not going to see a lot of Parker 410s floating around.
Okay. But exactly the same, just scaled down.
Scaled down, right? So this is on an O frame, which makes this the 16 gauge VH on an O frame makes this a very desirable gun.
O is a smaller frame.
Smaller frame, 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame would be the biggest.
Okay. Because they made up to what, 8 ball?
Yep.
8 gauge.
Yep. They made 8, 10, 14s. I mean, but again, these are not guns that you're going to find in common production. Most of the Parkers you're going to see are going to be, there are 28s, but mostly what I encountered at Orvis when they came in used are 20s and 12s and 16s.
How much were they new? Were they affordable?
A Trojan
aside,
yeah, I mean, the Trojan was for rural Americans, people who wanted a good, reliable, I mean, it's Old Reliable is its nickname, and people wanted to appeal to some people who couldn't necessarily afford a higher end gun, so they did make the Invincible. One of the things about the Invincibles is because they were, let's just say, a farmer's gun. When we get a Trojan in more often than not on a consignment sale, it is beat up, or it has had lots of indignities done to it in the effort to preserve it over the years, and
perhaps not by a qualified
No,
person.
One of the things that you and I've discussed off camera about Parkers is that in the name of preservation, lots of horrendous things are done to them. They're cut, chopped, bent, reblued incorrectly. One of the things you frequently see is, and you see it a lot on the case-colored guns that were reblued, the receiver ends up. So you get a VH, should be case-colored. The whole thing's been blued.
But again, from a practical perspective,
you got a beat-up old gun. You want to keep it shooting. You send it to a decent gunsmith, and you have the whole thing reblued.
And that's fine.
Right. The cost to recolor it would be cost prohibitive, and you just get it reblued.
Okay. How much now can you get into a Parker for? Not an Invincible.
Like a 12 gauge V grade.
And that a V is entry.
Entry level. 12 gauge V grade. I mean, if you wanted a beat up one, $900. If you wanted an okay gun,
so it's cheap.
15.
Relatively.
2, 3. Depends on how close it is to original, how much is still there, how much it hasn't been buggered up.
How does the grading work?
Well, given the fact that I'm a former school teacher, I will go to my notes so that my lecture is correct. So just kind of get back to what we talked about. 8, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 20, 24, 28, and 410 gauges.
I feel like they offer too much.
Well, they did, and that's why you only see 12s, 20s, 26s, and some rare 28s that floating around. 410s are equally rare. And then the grades were the Trojan, the lowest grade, the V, the P, the G, the D, the C, the H, the B, the AH, the AAH, the A1 Special, and then the Invincible.
And those can all have an E put after them.
If they are an injector gun.
And a H for hammerless if needed.
Correct.
I think numbering is good. Me and Sash were talking last night about the iPhone.
Yeah.
The iPhone's really convenient. Yeah.
Correct.
Or like now, A, B, C, D.
Right.
A sequential system that's easy to understand for
but we
relatively
give them,
low
but we
IQ
give guns
humans.
silly names.
Like the 686 and the 525.
Right.
Yeah.
The EEL, the EEL, the double, I mean, we go through this all the time, right?
I suppose nowadays it's quite easy to remember that, but in 100 years' time they're going to hate us for it.
Correct. That is correct. So that's where we're at. So this gun, so if you want to chat about each gun, we can do that.
All right. I think we should do that.
Okay.
Out in the field.
Okay. We can do that.
But before that, I'm going to go inside one of these because it's clearly not an Anson and Dealey.
No.
It looks more like a greener concept. Yep. But we're going to go and find out.
Okay.
I am acutely familiar with a box lock. This is not that.
No, it's not. One of my theories, I think, is this requires less hand regulation than an Anson and Dealey, right? This is a gun that was essentially mass-produced. It was assembled rather quickly. It doesn't require, at least from the factory, doesn't require a lot of hand fitting, right? These parts were all coming off an assembly line, very quickly finished and installed.
Yeah, and there's a lot more parts.
Quite a few.
There's a lot of parts.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of things going whiz, pop, and bang in here in order to get this gun to work. You'll notice that we've elected not to remove the stock because it requires a good bit of work.
Yeah, and we're all going to shoot this, really.
You're right, yeah. So
right
we're
now.
trying to keep it together for the time being. Right, so what you're seeing here is the bottom side of a Parker Action.
This was the thing that shocked me most when you handed me, is that the locking
Just
piece
falls right out.
just falls out.
Yeah, yep. So that's what you get with a lot of these is these parts. Again, this gun, you can kind of picture it, was put in a jig at the factory. Everything was installed and put in and laid in place.
The key thing that is different is that on a box lock, you take your lower and upper piece off together, very simply. In this, you're saying that the standard like takedown procedure or in assembly, they'd lock it in a jig and drop everything in from the bottom, slap the plate on, job done, out the door.
Essentially, yes. In most cases, yeah, that's exactly what would happen because one, it was quick, it was easy.
Yeah.
It didn't require a lot of hand fitting.
It didn't require a 7-year apprenticeship.
That's just it. So in a lot of ways, it makes sense, right, for the commercial market, right? You want to get these done, you want to get them out the door, but when it comes down the line, 100 years later, a guy like me or you is working on this, it ends up being a nightmare. Right.
Yeah, or I expect if you were trained by them, it would all
Sure,
look a little bit
absolutely.
more regular.
Right.
If you had the original jigs and the original bits, it
tooling.
might be. But
Yes. But what you get is a gun that is now a puzzle because we have dozens upon dozens of pieces, parts that need to be removed in order to even get the stock off. It's quite an operation. But at the end of the day, it goes bang.
do they break?
Sure. Yeah.
Regularly?
I
they've
think
got the name Old Reliable.
So
they shouldn't break too much.
So that's the thing. Generally speaking, you don't get a lot of Parkers that have catastrophic failures. Now you have springs that break just like on any gun.
Springs, strikers.
Yeah, sure. Things that wear out. But as far as I know, there's nothing particularly chronic about these that you would see,
in other lesser quality guns.
There's a few classes of people, right, when it comes to Parkers. Some people love Parkers and will say nothing but good things about Parkers. Other people, particularly like me, who've been in them and working on them and repairing them, have a lot of curse words to say about Parkers.
Would you buy one?
For the right price, I think I would. If the measurements are right and the gun's in decent shape, yeah, I'd buy a Parker for the right price.
These have a really keen following. These are people are addicted to Parkers.
Absolutely. They seem to sell when they're for the right price, and when you have one in excellent condition,
People are all over it.
Yeah, they are.
I presume when you get one in, you field a lot of comments or calls from the regular guys.
Yeah. So it's just one of those guns. It's up there with the L.C. Smiths and the Bakers and Parkers on that list, and all these guns that are just classic American guns that people just can't seem to let go, right?
On that fine note, you want to try and get this lovely thing back together? Let's go shoot it.
I will. Thank you. All right.
For a 20 gauge, it shoots really nice.
It does shoot really nice. It's soft, the triggers are nice. This sat in a safe in Washington State for probably a decade.
So I'm not surprised it was a bit sticky when we
A bit
started.
sticky on that first ejector, but
And then it sorted itself out after the first couple of shots.
of the Parkers that we have, I like this gun the best. It's definitely the fancier gun, without a doubt.
Looking, internally they're identical.
Internally, they're identical. I've always loved these sort of cartoonish,
Stylized.
stylized, is that what we're calling them?
Yeah,
I always call them cartoonish.
Simon Reinhold would say it looks like a
Cartoonish
talented
dogs,
child. did
game
it?
scene engraving. But as a DHE, as a higher end gun, it had. When we look at the VH, there's nothing. There's a couple scratches on it, but this is a fancier gun.
Have sub gauges always been a thing for American shooters?
The 12 gauge is the king, I think, in the United States. But I always say to people, once I bought a 20, I've never carried a 12 in the field ever again.
And this was designed for a man.
Definitely
It
designed
feels
for a
like
man.
it's designed for a man.
Lightweight field gun for a man.
It's an interesting thing because when you get your R20s from back home,
Yeah.
they're all scaled and short, and generally the majority are for a woman or a child.
Really?
Yeah, and it's bizarre to pick up a 100-year-old side-by-side 20 ball that was designed for a bloke.
For a man. No question. And as I said, I think that when I'm involved in gun sales and I get people and I say, have you shot a 20 in the field? And once they do go shoot a 20 in the field, they're knocked out. They're like, why have I been lugging that 12 around for as long as I have?
The biggest takeaway from just shooting this one stand,
Yeah.
we're going to shoot another one
Yeah.
in a second, is this is the true example of American gun making. It's not particularly refined.
Yep.
It's not super sophisticated.
Nope.
All of the internals are not quite where they should be, but in use, perfect.
You're not shooting this gun and taking it and goes, there's something wrong with this. It doesn't feel right. It comes to the it comes to the face nicely. I think it's like a nimble gun.
Yeah, it moves well. Triggers are great.
Yeah.
And that's the American hallmark.
And to carry this all day in the field would be a delight.
Oh yeah. Are you actually going to break a pair now?
No.
That was the wrong way around, wasn't it?
I shot that. I broke it the second time.
Yeah, but you didn't even see the first target come out. Ooh.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah, it makes me feel better too, somehow. I've no idea how in America you start the day at like 5 degrees Celsius and it's now -2.
I know, isn't it crazy?
Hey,
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the sun's different here. Science has proved that.
Yeah. So this is the 16 gauge we just had a partner O frame.
You have to consult Greg. He's the Parker expert when it comes to frames.
And we've established that he is the biggest Parker
He is,
expert in
and
the
that
whole of
I want
America.
that on record.
Yeah.
That he is Parker expert.
If you need anything Parker related, give him a call at the Orvis Sandanona. Mate, you're shooting that one quite well.
Doing the best I can.
He hit that pair, no doubt.
The 16, to be honest with you, with these shells doesn't feel all that much different. I mean, you know, a little bit more felt recoil, but not by much.
Is there a Parker that people prefer? 12s, 20s? What is the perfect Parker for most collectors?
Perfect Parker, that's a loaded question. I think everybody would give you a different answer. Depends on personal preference, like most things, you know? Some people want a 12, some people want a 20. 16's kind of a tough sell these days, but
There's a
some
lot of
people
geeks
like
out there who like
Sure,
it.
yeah.
So they lock up quite nicely as well. Like it's quite a nice
Yeah.
click. Not
Yeah,
like satisfying in terms of quality, but it's definitely
Oh, yeah.
good noise.
Oh yeah.
And Greg's obsessed with the safety catch, but I don't.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a much nicer gun to shoot than the 20 ball.
Do you think so?
That
Yeah.
little bit of extra weight.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
20
Because that's the thing. The lightness is great, but when you have a little bit more meat to it, you can swing a little bit.
As a bigger guy as
Yeah,
well, that
you're
20
right.
ball was just
Yeah, you're scrunched down on
too
it.
petite for me.
Sure.
Do they come in various barrel lengths?
From what I
presume so.
understand, you could order a gun back at, you know, when they were making these in the
Yeah.
early part of the 19th or 20th century. But yeah, you could get all barrel lengths. Of course, over the years, people have cut them down. Sometimes you get one that's been shortened a good bit. But yeah, I think you could get them anywhere up to 32. I could be wrong
Yeah,
there.
so
I'm
they
sure.
did sort of wildfowl. Did they make a pigeon gun or something?
They
like
did not. No, they did not make a pigeon gun. As I understand it, from Greg, our local expert here, we have a heavy duck gun.
Like built on the 8-ball frame. or
Yeah,
whatever.
the biggest frame they had, yes, but they did not make a pigeon gun. No.
What's interesting is this gun is 2.5-inch chambers. Most of the ones we have had are, and you can't buy 2.5-inch here in America easily.
No, not at all. So we had to buy 2-inch from an American vendor that they bought from England.
I mean, I feel like this is a waste of 2-inch shells.
But it's not a waste if we're doing it for you.
You're doing it for you, don't lie. That's the sort of thing you tell your wife. I'm doing it for you. We're buying this new gun for you.
Well, when we knew we were coming over, we had to get shells, and I
this
couldn't
is
find
it. Oh, hang on, light it
proper
up.
2-inch gun would be great.
This gun does weird tickly things to me because it's obscure and pointless.
Obscure and pointless.
It's obscure. It's a single barrel, a fine quality gun. It's kind of obscure, kind of pointless nowadays.
But it's got a following.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah, no question about
Back
it.
home. not the
And
slightest.
as a consignment gun, people are hot to buy it, but not at the price that the consignor's asking.
That's pretty common.
Yeah.
The stuff we do with Holtz, it's a similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
The vendor advised estimate kind of concept.
This one, I have a standing offer on this gun, and the consignor's not interested, so I just stays. But I got a guy who calls me about it probably about once a month.
And for the money that you've said that our guy's offering, I think it's worth it. Like,
It's spot on for what he's offering.
It's a
because
wonderful
as you and I have talked about other guns before, this gun has a lot of apologies.
yeah.
You
It's
know?
not lovely, but it is cool as hell.
It's cool. It's stout.
And it might shoot really well.
Well, we're about to find out. In your hands, it might shoot well.
Greg, you are a talented man. The
I will
concept
tell
of
you
a single
this.
barrel is clearly.
It's dainty.
It might not have the full choke in it anymore, but it's still got some choke.
Still got some. Of course, they're lobbing me easy ones. This is sweet. I like this gun.
I'll make you an offer on it, Greg, but not one that he'll take. I'm here to film a film about Parker doubles, but it turns out the Parker single is the best gun they ever made. Ooh, what a gun.
I know.
Oh, I could definitely get behind that. That's awesome. A whole pile of fun. I only wish this side-by-sides give you that level of joy.
I know.
So
There we
while
go.
you're up here chit-chatting, my research indicates that these are also considered a live bird gun.
So that was a single-shot pigeon gun.
Yeah,
So that was their pigeon gun.
yeah. No safety, right?
No.
Nope, no safety.
And then we know that this gun is not, should have been a full choke gun, and it's not. Modified.
I really like that gun.
Yeah, it's cool.
Are they common?
I mean, there are a few out there on the internet, maybe a handful of them right now on Guns International. This is the only used one that's ever come in our shop, whereas as Connor had with the other day, VHs come in all the time.
Yeah,
12 gauge VH all the time.
Well, they were like nearly 100,000
Yeah.
of those.
Well, I don't know how many they made, but and then the Trojans you see a lot of too, shot out Trojans. The higher grade guns, they made less of them, and you just don't see them as often.
Yeah, I always admire a fine quality single.
That's a slick gun.
It is.
It shoots so well.
Yep.
Probably because it shoots kind of like an over and under. And yeah, no, that's what we're all used to shooting on a daily basis.
And actually, that ejector has got it going on.
It's pretty
stout.
Yeah, it's pretty stout.
I feel the need that one day we'll go inside one of these and put ourselves off.
We'll see, we'll see.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for introducing me to the Parker concept.
You're welcome.
Our pleasure.
You do not see English, no, you don't see American doubles in England. You really don't.
In general.
I've seen two, I think.
Right.
And I own one of them.
Right.
Because
Right.
I saw it and you can't not say no.
Right. Of the three we shot, are you partial to that one?
Oh, I think that if I was to part with money,
Yeah.
one of these.
That's the gun.
Yeah. Because I think I'd actually take this out and use it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and people that, you know, the thing about this gun too is people have asked about lengthening the chamber on this gun.
It's totally doable. There's so much meat
There's
in
a
it.
ton of steel.
You could probably take that to a 3-inch if you really want
No
to.
question about it. And that's been the one thing that people have asked me. I'm like, there's no problem with that.
And that would ruin the value?
It would make it worse, right? Then it's further away from original. So it's a catch-22, right? If you open it up and you make it a more versatile gun,
It's
that's
more
great.
saleable, but it's worth less.
But now it's worth less.
So you'd have to buy it right to make it worth doing the
And
work.
we see that with like some of the older LC Smiths that are full and extra full, but they're pristine, right? So, and they have terrible drops. So you can adjust the gun to make it shoot for you and open up the chokes. So, but now you're ruining the value. So it's a tough gun. Like a collector will buy it because it's pristine, it's perfect, but it's not very useful.
So I presume there's two markets, users and collectors.
Correct. But if you want to get that gun and then say, okay, I want it for a field gun and open it up. Now you've opened it up and you've created a great LC Smith or an older American gun that works for you, but the value is diminished. So you have to kind of decide, like, am I buying this gun as a shooter so I can take it out and be happy to be hunting with this gun? Then by all means.
All right.
Some folks just want to hunt with a Parker. There's like a mystique
Because
to
the
it.
granddad did. Or
Yeah,
great-granddad.
and that's where the appeal is. And when people say that to me often, that's where the Trojan, the blued Trojan that's still tight on face, that still works, buy it. And then you could tote around a great classic American double and
very reasonable
without
money.
spending a fortune, but you're part of the culture, part of that older American hunting culture with a cool old double.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you again for introducing me to American doubles in a way that I
welcome.
very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
And, well,
My pleasure.
we'll send the camera off and go and have some fun with
Okay.
the guns.
Thank you for watching, guys. This channel is made possible by our amazing sponsors. You can find out more about them in the description down below. And if you want to support the channel, you can join as a member. You get loads of extra content, well, some extra content, and occasionally we hook up and go clay shooting together as a membership group. If you don't feel like joining today, we really appreciate you watching and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.